Spurs have just lost the Super Cup final. You know what though? My video would have been the same whether they won or lost, I'll be real. Because to me, that is what you call coaching. Like, if anyone knows me, they know I'm a big fan of Thomas Frank. And I think, this is what I think Man United fans would expect from Amorim and stuff like that. Because even though they lost, and of course, Arsenal fan, I need them to lose and all of that stuff, of course. During the game, I'm thinking, oh, PSG, I need you to win this game. Cool. But overall, as an overall game, Spurs were brilliant. And not only were they brilliant, yeah, the thing about Thomas Frank, he reminds me of a modern day Mourinho. That he's one of them type of guys. And he did everything. He's one of the managers that he plays to his players' strengths and opponents' weaknesses. That's what he does. He will go and put players in positions to stop your team first and foremost. And you see me, I've had enough of seeing every single manager play exactly the same. It's boring to me. Yes, if you see me on streams and online, you will hear me going back and forth with Spurs fans, whether I'm an Arsenal fan, naturally. But actually, as a whole, what I actually believe, I genuinely am bored of every single manager playing every single inverted fullback and everyone playing out from the back. It's annoying, it's boring to me. I like old school football where, any way you can win is how you win. The only thing I will say about Tottenham, though, is I think that as brilliant as they were today, I think it's easier to do it against the better teams that are controlling the game. I think during the season, when they're playing against Leeds or Sunderland, I don't think the fans will be as accepting of this style of football. That's the only thing I will say. I think over time, people will be like, it feels anti-footballish. But as a whole, they were brilliant today. They were brilliant today. They were all over PSG. They really should have won the game because even in the first half, PSG couldn't get no chances. And Tottenham had about 3 or 4 chances. PSG had no chances at all. Yes, PSG have got quality, but they've got Jed Spence just shut down that right-hand side. I didn't really know what PSG were doing because I know Neves didn't play and Fabian Ruiz wasn't playing. I know they've just come back they've just only been back a week, PSG, for the long summer. But I don't think Tottenham would have cared if they won the Super Cup. And to me, I was going to do the same video if they won or lost. I was going to say the Super Cup, regardless, is a big European trophy. That's what I believe. Yes, the Club World Cup is a big trophy, maybe in the next few years. And the Europa League is not quite the Champions League. But the Super Cup, I regard that as a big European trophy. So I was desperate for Tottenham not to win this. And like I said, my video would have been exactly the same. But Thomas Frank and Tottenham, they're going to be hard to beat this season. You ain't going to be able to beat this team easy this season. No one is going to beat Tottenham with ease. I know exactly how they're going to play. I know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to play exactly the same way against all the big teams. They ain't going to be easy to beat. I just feel like they're going to be tough for other teams to accept. Sorry, not for other teams, for their fans to accept this style of football because it's really similar to Mourinho and Conte. It's the modern day version of those guys. So I think after 3, 4, 5 months, because after a while, Tottenham were not really getting tired. They just started clearing their lines because that type of football, it's good at the beginning and for Kudos and Richarlison to hold the ball up and start dribbling with the ball on the counter and on the break. But after a while, though, that takes a lot of energy out of you. When Kudos every time he's got the ball, he's got to run 30 or 40 yards to try and take on a few players. That becomes tiring. And then you don't become so explosive after about 50, 60 minutes anymore. That's why Kudos came off, because he couldn't continue that. Whereas if you have the ball all the time, you're not as tired, you're not doing as much work. That's why a lot of managers like Guardiola, Arteta, those guys, they want the ball slot. They want to keep the ball because they want to make sure they tire out their opponent more so than themselves get tired out. With Thomas Frank's football, which we already saw Brentford, his team are going to get tired quite often, especially against the bigger teams. So he's going to have to constantly make subs and constantly make changes. And when you make changes like taking Kudos off and bringing Tell on, that changes your game plan completely because Tell just can't hold the ball like Kudos can. Or certain players like Bergvall, you're bringing Bergvall on now, Paulinho comes off, 2 totally different players. Maybe they're going to play the same way in this system, but they just can't do it the same. And it took PSG a while to get used to this Tottenham system. I don't know why. Kvaratskhelia was on the right, they were mixing it up, and Dembele was playing, looked like Dembele was playing like a 6. because he was getting the ball. I don't know what, they were all over the place. They were trying to figure it out for a while, and it took them a little while to figure it out. And after a while, Dembele just said, no, give me the ball against Spence, because Spence was controlling Hakimi and Kvaratskhelia. They couldn't do anything past him. And big up Jules, because he'd been telling me about Spence for a minute. So you got to beat them up, because Spence he ripped apart their their right hand side. But when Dembele started running down the wing and just crossing the ball, that created panic for Tottenham. All of a sudden, it's not the spaces that you're trying to cover. You can't practice for whipping balls into the box. Yes, you can practice that in training, but when you whip the balls in the box, it's going to create chaos regardless of how many times you practiced it. What I will say though about Frank though is he's sorted out their corners. Them lot from corners, you're not going to score many corners against them. And they had a couple of chances from corners themselves. So the set pieces are going to be key for Tottenham this year, and they're going to be very hard to break down. I think this is what you call coaching. You got to big up Thomas Frank and Tottenham, because this game was a seriously good game for Tottenham. And like I said, I would have had the same video if they won or lost. Because when they were 2-0 up, I already had my plan of what I was going to say. I was going to go and do the video and have my plan anyway. I was going to big them up because I can't stand the team, but sometimes you've got to give credit where it's due. And I think Thomas Frank is a brilliant manager. I just feel like you have to give him the leeway to be able to play like this over the course of the season, because it can get a bit tiresome and a bit anti-footballish if you're playing like this against. They'll accept it against the top teams for now, but over time you'll be like, oh, I don't want to be playing, especially if you're doing it against the smaller teams. If you're doing it against the smaller teams as well, when you're playing against, I don't know, Leeds, and Leeds are controlling the whole game at White Hart Lane, I don't think that's going to go down well too often. Yes, at the beginning and they're winning games, yeah, that's cool, but same as Ange. Ange was playing all this attacking football and everyone loved it until he gets over a period of time, and all of a sudden we want a bit more balance. This is the same with Thomas Frank. You're going to be sitting back and then they're going to be like, we need more balance, we need more attacking football. So they did well today. They did well today, and really and truly, they kind of deserve to win. So, like, they did everything they needed to do. All the players did everything they needed to do. They got to the last 10, 15 minutes. It's just lapses in concentration and tiredness that just creeps in. And that's what happens with this style of football. The style of football that Thomas Frank and those guys play, you're not actually in control of the game. That's the only problem with it. You can control certain aspects which don't give them space and don't let them get in that position, but you're not actually in control of the game because you don't have the ball. And that's the difference between Thomas Frank and, for example, Roberto Martinez, who people might regard Thomas Frank as better and he hasn't done more in the game, but they might say, I'd rather have Thomas Frank as my manager right now, and maybe so, but you're not controlling the game. It's not in your hands because you don't have the ball. And that's the difference, which I think why PSG ended up winning this game. They didn't win the game because they were the better team. They won the game because they were in control of the game. And even when they scored the first goal, PSG, they weren't rushing. They knew we can get one chance, we can get two chances. Because when you're in control of the game, it's down to you specifically. And that's the only difference today, is the fact that they were in control of the game. But Tottenham, they did their thing today, man. They've showed the whole world that they're ready for the Champions League. And they've showed the whole Premier League, you ain't coming to our ground, or we're not coming to your ground, and you're not beating us easily anymore. So every team now knows that Tottenham are going to be a tough team to beat. They're not going to be losing many games or conceding many goals. So the North London derbies this year are going to be very different. Very, very, very different. They're going to be probably a little bit spikier because Tottenham are doing a lot of, it's not time wasting, but hanging around and kicking the ball away and all those tricks, which I do appreciate. I'm an old school guy. I appreciate that as a football fan. Forget the bias and the tribalism. But like I said, this year they're going to be a problem for all the big teams. But whether they can maintain it over the course of the season and beat the smaller teams as well, we'll have to find out. But yeah, man, they didn't win the Super Cup today. You know what I'm saying? Luckily for Arsenal, because everyone was waiting. All I saw was online was Arsenal this and Arsenal that and Arsenal this and Arsenal that. So it comes with the territory, innit? At the end of the day, Arsenal got to start winning European trophies to shut that banter down. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it, man. That's what I think on it. I'm just ready for the season, man. I'm ready for the season. But yeah, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Don't forget to do that because that comes with the territory, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, that's my thoughts on today's game.